The Maple Leafs give up their third period lead to the Habs and lose in overtime. We'll recap the game with some things we liked, some things we didn't. Also, some news and notes from camp, including our first big round of cuts. Who made the cut? Who made the list? And what camp battles remain as well. We'll go through all of that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So if you plan on going to any more Leaf games, make sure to download the Game Time app and use the code LOCKEDONNHL. You can get $20 off your purchase. And hey, let's be honest. Pretty expensive tickets here in Toronto. So if you can get $20 off, hey, you got yourself basically means the first beer of the game will be on Game Time. So make sure that you use that if you're going to a game. Speaking of game, there was one that was just played last night. Dave took on the Montreal Canadiens for the third time in 4 nights, and it turned out to be a lot different, the outcome did, than the first couple. The Leafs lost this game. It was a late collapse against the Habs. They fall 5-4 in overtime. Tavares scored twice. Yeah, Domi with a revenge goal. Noah Gregor opened the scoring with a goal for himself, making his case to remain on the club, but to no avail. Leafs give it away. Josh Anderson, vaunted Leaf killer, comes up clutch again to tie it, and then Cole Caulfield scores late in overtime to seal the deal. Leafs falling to 3-3 now on the preseason. For those who are keeping score of the record, which you and I do not. Dave, what'd you make of that game?
It was entertaining. I will say there was some chippiness to it, which I liked.
Yeah,
obviously had quite a few goals in the game. The sloppiness from certain players that, I understand that their position in the roster is almost pretty much secured, but let's get some of the sloppiness that we've seen in the past before. You would think that at some point that sloppiness would get out of their game. 2 moments particularly, the shorthanded goal they allowed.
Yeah.
And the overtime goal. That's the type of effort that drives me up the wall.
Well, not just you. Apparently, Sheldon Keefe, too, who said the game was really sloppy, right? When he was asked his thoughts on the game, he said it was super sloppy and probably the worst of the one that the 3 games that they had played against Montreal. And which the concern there, isn't it, Dave, is that this was the game that was filled with your night 1 starters for the most part. I don't know about you, but when I saw the lineup come out tonight and I found out who's going to be playing, I immediately said to myself, well, this could very well be the exact same forward group that starts things off next Wednesday when the puck drops for real against these exact Montreal Canadiens. And this is going to be a bit of a precursor. I guess Calle Jarnkrok is the one, thing that's up in the air. Could he potentially factor into that game and someone comes out? But pretty much that was my thought process. So you're hoping to see a good outing from these Toronto Maple Leafs, from the veterans out there. And it wasn't really all that inspiring for the most part. You had some good performances. Like anytime Tavares can score twice, you feel good about it. There were some nice tic-tac-toe plays by Matthews and Marner showing off. Yes, they still have all that chemistry. You got to go from Domi. But ultimately, you still don't like when you give up 5 goals to a team that didn't make the playoffs last year.
No, and again, I always say, one team I want to see this team eventually figure out how to beat is the Montreal Canadiens. More specifically, Josh Anderson.
Yeah, well, Ryan Reeves, buddy. Ryan Reeves should go out there and beat him, if you know what I mean.
You know who did show a little physicality tonight that I like to see? Timothy Liljegren.
He did.
Do you see who he hit along the boards there?
I
And
certainly
look
did.
at you. I didn't hate that. Didn't hate that one at all.
No, no. I'm sure a lot of people were happy with that. But I mean, like we talked about that in Lost podcast. He's somebody who kind of is being circled as someone who they want to kind of step up and take that next step, not only off ice on a leadership perspective, but also take his game to that next level. Like he is a former first round pick. He is getting into his, mid-ish 20s, and it's time for him to really take that step and become a focal point of this team's blue line. And with the absence of John Klingberg, he was thrust into a top 4 role tonight. And it's funny, we were talking about if Klingberg's injury does linger and does last into the season. We weren't sure exactly what Keefe would do. Would he change up the lines? Would he put him with Morgan Riley and then Brody drop down to play more of a shutdown role with Jake McCabe? Well, I think we found out tonight that he challenged Timothy Liljegren and he said, let's see what you can do with these minutes. Let's see if you and Jake McCabe can try and come up with some sort of chemistry, which makes sense, I suppose. Just, it's better to figure that out today rather than 8 days from now when it really counts, right? You can always put Riley and Liljegren back together and that they have that chemistry from playing with each other. I thought that it was decent tonight. A player that a lot of people were kind of curious about, though, was going to be Kokkonen because he got some praise pregame from Sheldon Keefe, saying he's been one of the more underrated players in his mind in this entire camp. So he got to play tonight with the injuries to both Klingberg and Connor Timmins. And perhaps if the injuries do persist, there could be a spot for him on this opening night roster. But what did you make of his game tonight?
I mean, now that it's funny because Sheldon Keefe went with he's been flying under the radar.
Yeah, no, not anymore.
Yeah, when you say that and when it gets tweeted out, not anymore. And like it was unfortunate that one of the goals tonight went off him as he's trying to defend the guy in front of the net. Like there's really well,
he got bodied in front of the net. Like I think it was Kirby Doc. Kirby Doc just overpowered him, basically shoved him in towards the cool mouth and ends up going off his skate. And then it's like, yeah, I guess he probably still could put on a couple of pounds, couple of
lbs. He's not a small guy whatsoever either.
No, he's not like Lane Hudson, Topi Niemela type small, but still young.
No, he's young, and like that's noticeable, right? You're gonna when you put these guys against more NHL ready lineups where there's going to be a few, bigger bodies, that's something you're going to see happen. You're going to see, someone like Kokkonen struggle a little bit more. So I'm curious to see now the Leafs. I think they're going to be going to Gravenhurst, I think is what I heard Sheldon Keefe say after the game. They're going to go do some team bonding.
Up in the Muskoka Woods area, up there. They're trying to recreate the Muskoka 5. I don't know. What happens up in Gravenhurst. But there was another interesting name that is going to be joining them in Gravenhurst and one that won't be joining them. Why don't we take a quick break? When we get back, we can finish talking about this game and then also get into some of the other new information that we found out about the Maple Leafs over the course of the last 24 hours, including some guys who've been cut. Our first round of roster cuts have been made. Any notable names that were on there, or maybe more so the notable names that weren't sent home might be worth talking about. So we'll do that on the other side. But first, let's talk about one of today's show sponsors, and it, of course, is our good friends at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying your tickets to the next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can buy tickets in seconds with 2 quick taps. Game Time has the deals on tickets right up until the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last minute seats. With zone deals, you can pick the section. Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here of the Locked On Leafs show. We are a daily Maple Leafs podcast. We do put out new content each day, Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcast from, whichever streaming platform you use. Also, we're up on YouTube. You can check out the video portion of the show. Also, just search up Locked On Leafs, hit subscribe, and there you go. You'll get new content every day.
Want to see those likes on the videos too? Gotta smash it. What do
Yeah,
smash the like button?
It does help. It does help with the algorithms and all that stuff that happens with YouTube. If we get likes, comments down below, let us know, your thoughts on what happened tonight. Let us know what position battles you guys are still excited about. Dave, did anybody excite you tonight that is going to be part of any of these final position battles? We know the players that did get sent down today and the guys who remain. We'll get to that in just a moment. But did anybody, you think, kind of assert themselves in the game tonight, specifically against Montreal, and say, hey, I want to take hold. I want the inside track when it comes to being on this roster, being one of the final names on this roster?
Well, we kind of talked about Noah Gregor a little bit on the last show, and he was someone where do you want to take away the ability for someone else to make the roster to get a guy on a PTO on here? And we saw tonight a little bit of why maybe they want to have Noah Gregor on this team. He, scores a goal that kind of helps his case a little bit there, but his speed is just so apparent, right? You see it a lot more when he's doing his thing, and now you get to see a little bit of the offense that comes with it. So he's someone that I thought, showed a little bit more tonight. I think he's starting to realize that these last few games are his last opportunity to really make his name, make his presence known. So he was one for me, I think, really put himself in a good position tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Noah Gregor's a dude. He's pretty much done exactly what he's been asked to do, right? Go out there, compete your ass off, forecheck, back check, kill some penalties, show us that you can be flexible in different positions and play some extra minutes if need be, outside of just, fourth line left wing. He's a guy who also can take draws if need be. I believe he played center at points in his career. And yeah, he scored tonight. It was a muffin, let's be honest. It wasn't the best goal. But for a guy who last year was dealt with, the bad luck bug, had a very low shooting percentage. I think I checked today, it was 6 or 7% shooting percentage, and league average is 10. So, when you're shooting 2-3 percentage points below league average, and you're somebody who does get, quite a decent amount of shots off, maybe this year it's going to go in the other direction, where now maybe you get, some puck luck going your way this time. And I think that, although it's a preseason goal, that's one of those plays where it's it was kind of a flub. Definitely not. That would be one that Jake Allen wanted back, but perhaps, that could be something to watch for, throughout the season. Does Noah Gregor, much the same way where David Kampf, his first year in Toronto, the way where he ended up scoring a couple extra goals than he did the year prior in Chicago, maybe we could see something similar with Noah Gregor, who struggled to find the back of the net last year. Still scored 10 goals, but was expected to get roughly 13 to 15 based off of the opportunities that he was able to get himself. But yeah, I think Noah Gregor, to your point, we've talked about it. We're kind of on the fence of, okay, he probably will make the team, but there's other players who could make the team who are bubble guys. And I think ultimately I see him making this roster. I was thinking about it a little bit more today too. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have Noah Gregor make the roster and be, your 12th forward and be your winger. And if you got to send a guy like Robertson or Pontus Holmberg down to the minors, look, they can pass through waivers, right? Gregor won't pass through waivers. I mean, he's on a PTO anyway, so you'd have to release him. So this ensures a little bit more depth within the organization too. If you can sign Gregor to a contract, then have those guys be insurance policies should injuries or weak play kind of pop up too. That was another thing that kind of popped into my mind when kind of assessing the Noah Gregor situation.
Yeah, and look, I would rather see Holmberg and Robertson play than just sitting on in the press box too, right? Like
Yeah.
as much as they deserve to be on the team, they also deserve to play. At their age and where they are in their development, they're not in that position where you're okay sitting them. I wouldn't be okay sitting them. I would want to see them playing. So that's why I also think it's just so that much more important for you know, for having Noah Gregor on the team. And so that's something to kind of watch for. Obviously with the salary cap situation too, that's always going to play a factor as well. But they
Right.
really liked what Noah Gregor's done, and he's gotten a lot of like you're seeing PTO guys being released now.
He's still here, and
Still
he's still
here
here.
says something.
It does say something. And speaking of guys who've been released, do you have the tweet here from Leafs PR where they announced all of the cuts that were made today for the Maple Leafs? So yeah, so here's the official list here. So Keith Petruzzelli and Tommy Miller both sent down to the Marlies. The other a bunch more players were also sent down. So Abruzzese, Blandisi, Max Ellis, Roni Hirvonen, Kressler, Mastro Simone. That's it was a mouthful to read there for a second. I'm Italian. I should have been way more prepared to say that last name. Ovchinnikov, Jay O'Brien, Shea, Logan Shaw, Singleton. Did Shea and Singleton play a single game? Like I don't recall seeing these players.
One of the ones I hadn't really paid attention. Like
Weiss, I don't even know who Weiss is, to be honest with you. He was sent down. Slavin, Alex Steves, probably the most notable guy I would say who was sent down from the Maple Leafs camp this today, just because he's probably somebody who was competing for one of those fourth line spots alongside, Gregor and Holmberg and Nick Robertson. Those three made the cut. Those guys still on the roster and still have a chance to solidify an opportunity. A couple of defensemen who also were cut: Noah Dillingham, Hellickson, Topi Niemola, Petrianiro, Refi, Tyconic, and then your boy William Villanove was sent down as well, along with Cavalan, Hildeby, and Pexa. So as of now, there's just 3 goalies left on the roster, I guess, right? Like Marty Jones, and then you've got Joe Woll and Samsonov, so that's expected. I think my main takeaway from these cuts isn't necessarily anyone who was cut. Like I said, Steve's probably the most notable player. My main takeaway is maybe who wasn't cut, I guess. And the 2 names that stick out to me that are still with the team, Fraser Minton and Easton Cowan, right? Couple of young kids, top prospects for the Maple Leafs who've really played extremely well so far throughout the preseason here for Toronto. So with those guys sticking around, and there was a comment that was made post game by Sheldon Keefe, who said something to the effect of Fraser Minton will be joining the Leafs on that Gravenhurst trip that we were talking about, engage in some fun team bonding and do whatever the hell they do up there. Easton Cowan will not participate, however. He's going to be sticking around. I think that's because Easton Cowan's going to play the game Wednesday. So I think it's basically the main club's going to go and have an opportunity to do some bonding up in Gravenhurst, whatever. And then the second group is going to stay behind and play that game on Wednesday. I think they got Detroit, I believe, is the
Thursday's the game.
Thursday's game. Yeah, Detroit, is that who it is? Yeah.
Detroit on
And huh?
Yeah, Detroit on Thursday. You're right.
Yeah, right. And then the other guys will be in Gravenhurst. But Easton Cowan will not. He's going to stay behind. Do you read into that at all? Fraser Minton being invited to go to Gravenhurst with the club?
I mean, he's deserving of it. I wonder too if the age plays a factor too. I don't know, but I think it's notable that Fraser Minton is going because I think out of all the junior players, like I'm not putting Matthew Nyes in that because he's played in the NHL, but like the junior guys, Fraser Minton has been the most impressive. Like Easton Cowan's been good. Fraser Minton has been the most impressive for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. And like basically what I'm getting at here, Dave, is we kind of talked about it on a previous podcast how we don't expect Minton to make the team. He's still young, and it would be beneficial for him to go and play a top role on his junior team, and then also get an opportunity to represent Canada at the World Juniors, and have a really good season in the minors, and then come up next year really nice and seasoned. But maybe he does have a chance. Maybe Keefe is thinking, look, I like what I've seen from this kid. He might be one of the better options, and a better option potentially than some of the other guys that are at Leafs camp right now. Like, could that possibly be the thinking here? Like, I don't know. That's kind of where maybe I'm reading too much into it, that Minton's joining the big boys on this club, and Easton Cowan is not. I didn't expect Cowan to. I didn't expect Minton to either, but the fact that he is, like, maybe it does say something about his chances being greater than we initially thought.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't surprise me if they keep him as long as possible just for the experience alone. Like, he's shown that he's closer than maybe I expect. I didn't expect him to be where he was at this point, right, in camp. So maybe that gives him cause for say, you know what? Let's give him the experience. Let's let him enjoy this as much as we can have him here. And then, they don't have to make a decision on him right away. I know the WHL season has started, but I don't think the Leafs are too concerned about Fraser Minton not being there right away.
Yeah, I think missing the first week might not be the worst thing in the world.
I think he's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think that Sova kid's still technically around too, if I'm not mistaken. Probably gonna play that Thursday game, and he was not named the captain for Erie, and he's not there yet. So everyone's expecting him to get there, and he will. He will. He's got one more game to play with the Maple Leaf sweater on, and I would imagine the same thing will happen with Easton Cowan. He'll probably go back to London after that game as well. And there's still maybe a small chance that Fraser Minton could shoehorn his way into this Leafs lineup. Maybe get a 9-game look at the very least to start the year, specifically if there is an injury to Calle Yarncroc. Maybe that also opens up a little bit of an extra, an extra chance for him.
Calle Yarncroc kind of made it seem. Well, maybe we can talk about it on the other side here because I know we have.
Well, go ahead.
Calle Yarncroc kind of made it seem like he's close to coming back.
Yes. Yeah. He apparently twisted his neck in practice, which is why he missed some time. Looks like it's not the trade rumor that everyone was trying to start, but he is expected to be good to go at some point here soon. He's day to day, might get into one of these games, one of these final 2 games, but should definitely be ready to go by the time we get the season started up here next week against these very same Montreal Canadiens. What we can talk about on the other side, though, we talked about Noah Gregor, we talked about Fraser Minton, and does he have a chance to possibly make this roster? Well, why don't we go over some of the camp battles that remain? We could talk about, briefly say, okay, these guys are locks, but these are the players still on the bubble. These are the players that are still competing for those couple of final roster spots. So we'll kind of lay that out for y'all on the other side. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys about one of today's show sponsors, and it's our good friends over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 wager. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL and the NHL season in style. FanDuel, official partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We're your hosts here for the Locked On Leafs podcast. And just as we were chatting before we left, we were talking about, some potential camp battles that are still going to be happening. There's 2 more preseason games for guys to get a final look at this group and at these players. So let's pull up. Do me a favor, pull up the cap friendly, and let's take a look at the roster and how it's constructed, and then we can basically decide. Okay, these guys are locks, which means these positions are still available. All right, so we've gone ahead and we totally didn't take a 10-minute pause break to get this configuration in order. That didn't happen. We didn't just cut right
Nothing so.
to All right, we've got what currently is the Maple Leafs roster as it stands. The guys who are still there, the guys who are still battling for a final opportunity to make this final club. And as we know, the Leafs are a team that is right up against the cap. So not only do they have to be cap compliant, there's a chance that they also won't be able to, have extra players on their roster either. So scroll up a little bit. I'm just curious, as of now, what the cap situation is like. So they're minus 10 million is the cap situation, but that's with all these players. Currently 33 guys on the roster. So we got to trim this bad boy down. So I think we could, without argument, probably say Bertuzzi, Matthews, Marner, locks. Correct? Yep. Yeah. Okay. Matthew Nyes to me has turned into a lock. Correct?
Yes.
Tavares is a lock. Is
Mhm.
Lafferty a lock for you?
Right now he is, because of where he's playing and he's producing.
Is he? He had a good look. He had a good look in tonight's game. I'll say that.
I mean, he's one of those guys where I wouldn't be surprised if they waived him if they feel like they need to get the cap space.
Well, that's what I mean. So is he a lock then? And maybe he's just a placeholder for Yarncroc.
Probably. Now,
So let me ask you again: is he a lock?
I won't put him as a lock.
Okay, then let's drop him quickly.
You want to drop him to the minors?
No, not to the minor. Just like put him like RW7 for now, just so we know what's available and what's not. Okay, Max Domi, lock.
Mm-hmm. Nylander,
William Nylander,
lock.
Nick Robertson, lock or nah?
I don't think so.
Neither do I. Okay, Yarncroc you think is a lock, correct?
I think so.
So let's put him to RW2 just for now, and then you can drop Robertson just below Reeves.
Okay, so Robertson just below Reeves. Cal Yarncroc goes up here. Oh, sorry, not Reeves. Not doing that.
Okay, Camp is a lock. Ryan Reeves. Is Ryan Reeves a lock for you?
I think he is.
This is where we may differ. We can leave him here for now.
Just because of the salary reasons. Like, you're not going to have enough extra forwards to supplant Ryan Reeves right now.
Yeah, like we'll get to that in just a moment. So right now, I guess we technically, based on how we're looking at it, Noah Gregor we have signed, and he's on this roster right now at a league minimum salary. Technically, we have him here as a fourth line, but I don't think he's got a lock yet either, right? So everyone else who is on this list right now, and if you're listening, we'll tell you the names in just a moment. Basically, everyone we didn't just mention, we believe are battling for 2 spots on this roster.
Yep.
When it comes to the forward position, we think there's 2 winger positions still available for this team. And those battles will be fought between Noah Gregor, Nick Robertson, Pontus Holmberg, Kyle Clifford, Fraser Minton, Bobby McMahon, Sam Lafferty, and Dylan Gambrell still technically, though he's injured right now, with the team. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with him. So of these players, though, Dave, the Noah Gregor, Holmberg, Robertson, McMahon, which of these do you think, as of now, has the inside track to make the team?
I would have liked to say Bobby McMahon, because I like Bobby McMahon, and also he's not waiver exempt.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to put that guy on waivers, but he's also injured. He might not even start the team. Like, he might start on IR,
which would be helpful, to be honest, if you're the Maple Leafs, right? So you don't have to move him or lose him.
Exactly.
Like
right now, if he was healthy, I think he'd be on the roster. And some people are going to say, "Oh, but he hasn't played." I've seen enough from Bobby McMahon to say he deserves a shot, and it's just a concussion. No, sorry, it's not a concussion. Is it a concussion for McMahon, or is it something else?
Is it a shoulder? That was maybe a shoulder issue for McMahon.
Yeah, I just think that he's someone that's deserving of the opportunity.
Yeah. So who do you have then making it? So who can we eliminate? Who can we eliminate? Why don't we start there? So
Clifford.
based on the guys who are battling for a spot, maybe it's easiest to do that. So Kyle Clifford, you think we can eliminate, move him to the minors. Thanks for coming out. He's a good veteran, and there will be a time where Kyle Clifford probably gets called up to play a game or two, but I don't think that time is now at the start of the season. Easton Cowan is probably another guy who, thanks for coming out, played great actually, and there was you had your 10 seconds of fame there after his first game where he looked good, and people were already saying, hey, maybe this kid could potentially make the team. We don't actually believe that it's going to happen. So I think it makes sense to send him down. Gambrell, we might as well also kind of put him down. I don't see him making the team over, a David Camp or even a Pontus Holmberg.
No.
I would probably also play Fraser Minton over that guy. So we're sitting here already, and we're starting to send some guys down. We're starting to see what this could look like. So essentially, we believe that going into the final two games, and tell me if I'm wrong. If you have any other, this is what I believe at the very least. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but this is what I believe, Dave, and everyone listening. I think Noah Gregor, Pontus Holmberg, Fraser Minton, Nick Robertson, Bobby McMahon, and Sam Lafferty. Those are the spots. Those are the players that I think are battling for these final two roster spots that are up for grabs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you might even say that with Sam Lafferty, we're looking at this empty right wing spot right now. Depending on Cal Yarncroke's situation, that's probably his. But other than that, I can't see anyone that we eliminated shocked. Like, it would be a shocker if any of those guys were still around midweek.
Well, what's the cap situation look like right now?
The Leafs are still 7.7 million over.
Right.
Million over.
So just for argument's sake, let's put Lafferty in that 3C hole. Or even, switch him with Yarncroc, because that's basically, I think, what we've seen.
Yeah.
Lafferty's played with Tavares and Nyes, and that's kind of the thing. So let's send everyone else down and see if this group, if this is what happens, if Noah Gregor ends up making the team, which it kind of seems like they want him to, I'd send everyone else down and see if we can get cap compliant by doing so. So Bobby McMahon down to the minors, and then
that makes it 4.5 million we still have to lose without doing anything on the blue line.
So on the blue line, obviously, you can put Timmins is going to end up on LTIR, I would imagine. The injury update to Timmins was that he's going to be out week to week. So he is going to be on at the very least, IR, potentially LTIR. We'll know a little bit more information a little bit later on. One of the goaltenders, you can also waive Martin Jones. He's not going to be on the roster. Hopefully he can get through waivers, but that is going to be one of the guys who they can, move down. Klingberg expected to play opening night, so you can put him back into that 2 role as the second defensive pairing alongside Jake McCabe. And so what do we got here? You could, if all is well, I don't think Kokonen's going to make this lineup. So you could probably send him down. Lajoie, Lagesson, you could probably send down as well. And it pretty much comes down to, I think there's one other guy at this point who might be able to work his way into a spot here, and that's Simon Benoit, who we saw play tonight. I don't like watching him as number 2. Just reminds me of Luke Shen, and it bothers me for whatever reason.
Yeah, number 2 is a weird. I mean, yeah, it's a weird.
It's not a weird. It's a completely normal defensive number, but it's like that's Luke Shen's number. Just stop.
Yeah,
just stop it. So where are we at cap wise now?
We are at 172,000.
$172,000. So this is why we keep trying to explain to everybody how, based on how everything works out with this team, they're not going to be able to carry extra players because you see it right here. They've got no extra forwards. They got just 12 forwards, and we're trying to carry an extra defenseman, and it's just not working. They still have to send somebody down. So this probably ends up being one of two people. Now, it probably ends up being Simon Benoit, realistically, is who ends up getting sent down here in this situation. And then that probably is going to be your opening night roster, and there's 600,000 in cap space, and they're cap compliant, and they're good to go. This is, to me, most likely, considering, if everyone stays healthy, what our opening night roster will look like. What do you think, Dave?
I mean, that's really, I anytime someone asks me how the Leafs figure this out, I said they likely go with the 20 roster. 20
Now,
roster.
There's one other way that they could open up some space and potentially carry an extra player, and that's if they send Ryan Reeves down. Because if you send Reeves down, right, you move him to the minors, you open up $1.7 million in cap space. $1.7 million is what you have. You can fit two contracts. So bring up, let's say, Nick Robertson and Simon Benoit at that price. Nicky Rob, welcome back to the team. And then you can also bring in Simon Benoit if you want to have an extra body defensively, or maybe, you have a guy who's not ready to go in John Klingberg and he just needs another day or so, but can't quite put him on IR. That's your way of also getting around that, and potentially that's something we could see, and you could still carry an extra player and have cap space. I don't see this happening because they did pay a lot of money for Ryan Reeves, but if they want to skirt around the rules a little bit somehow and get creative, I suppose, in order to fit an extra player on the roster, maybe it's also a way to keep Bobby McMahon in the fold, or a way to keep Martin Jones in the fold, potentially keep Marty Jones up there over Simon Benoit. Potentially that's a possibility if you want to let Reeves go down to the minors and open up just a little bit more cap space. But I don't think he goes to the minors. It's more of a paper
situation where you waive him, but he stays with the big club.
Like what happened with Wayne Simmons, right? So that would be the kind of creative way I think the Maple Leafs could get around their cap problem. But either way, those are the players that we peg as, the guys still battling for, those final couple of roster spots. We've identified basically there's two roster spots available, two wingers that need to come from that entire group of players that we just discussed. And, we believe it'll probably end up being Lafferty and Noah Gregor. Maybe Nick Robertson has an opportunity to get himself in there as well. But that's what we're thinking. Curious what you guys think. Let us know in the comment section down below who you think can end up winning these final two roster spots. So yeah, let us know in the comment section down below. All right, buddy. Bit of a longer one today, obviously, when we were trying to rip through that. And if you guys are listening to the podcast, that was more of a visual exercise. It'd be best if you went and subscribed and watched it on YouTube. If you got a little bit confused by what was being discussed there, if you're just listening to the pod. But either way, hopefully you enjoyed the content. I think we still had a couple of points that we were able to make there. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content from myself on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, smash that like button. As we said, it really helps us out a lot. Comments as well down below. Give us your thoughts as to what the final roster could look like. We want to see those opening night lineups, and give us your thoughts on the Leafs and how they played in the game against Montreal as well. Leave us any comment down below. Really would appreciate it. We'll be back on another episode for y'all tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.